So, I got a special review for you guys, and that is Godzilla 70th Anniversary. This is a comic that just came, as of this recording, came out today. I got it right after work. I burned through it, and basically, yeah, I wanted to do a review of it. Now, yes, we are in the 70th the year of the 70th anniversary of Godzilla. Yeah, 70 years of Godzilla, and IDW wanted to commemorate it by bringing out some big writers, some big creators, and people who have been connected to the Godzilla franchise, and some people that are shocking to have here. One of whom I was like, "You're here? You're still... What are you doing here?" We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah. Also, before I go any further, I just, also earlier today, I finished my review. I did my review of X-Men 97 season finale. So if you want to check that out, as well as all the reviews for all the episodes, as well as stuff for Has Been Hotel, that's also where I'm going to probably do the reviews for Star Wars The Acolyte. So just hit the link below, head on my Patreon, hit the first tier. There you go. But yeah, so let's get started. First off, I had to get the variant cover, because not to say the actual main cover is bad. It's actually a great little painted homage to the 54 film. But this I really liked. I just really dug this Godzilla trapped stuck in the shadows. He almost looks like a mixture of Shin and 54. Because it's so, it reminded me so much of, the Godzilla analog horror that's been going around on YouTube lately. If you haven't checked those out, they're really good. A majority of those are really good. Especially, Man in the Suit, okay, cool, it's like a Lovecraftian take, and it's not really Godzilla. It's like something else. I don't know. But it reminded me a lot of, Godzilla analog horror with this cover. But, yeah. So, the story is... So, it isn't really one big overarching story. It's more of a commemorate... It's multiple stories. I think it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9... Yeah, 9 comics for an 100-page book. And, yeah. So I'm going to go through each story real fast and kind of talk about it. Starting off with, the coolest one that I was like, holy shit, we got this? And that is Half-Century Boar. Basically, this is not so much a Godzilla story. It's actually a Hedorah story, but it's actually written and drawn by James Stokoe. And this is actually a story that is like a spin-off piece of Godzilla the Half-Century War. For those who are unaware, Godzilla the Half-Century War is arguably one of the best pieces of Godzilla media, not just in comic form, but in general. And it's really cool to see this go back to this universe. It's set in Turkey in 1971 and focuses on Hedorah's team as they're learning about Hedorah. But really, it's more about them cleaning up Hedorah, and also it's kind of a comedic tone, but it does have some action. That's the other thing with this comic that I really like, is that this comic doesn't go for funny. It's not trying to be funny. It ranges from, the closest we get is James Stokoe's story. The rest are more darker horror comics, and range from dark horror to, dark introspective stories. There's even one in here that feels like a Hayao Miyazaki story. But yeah. So, the first one we start off, then we move on to a comic written by, a story's called Contagion. And the story is written by Dan DiDio. I'm not joking. It's Dan DiDio who wrote a Godzilla comic. Can we just, I literally looked at that and went, that motherfucker's still around! I guess he's not doing anything, not being, now that he got kicked out of DC Comics, I guess he needs something to do. But Dan DiDio writes, basically his story involves a monster that... And this is the other thing. There's a lot of original monsters in here alongside the kaiju we know. There is, whole new... at least 2 new kaiju that are comic exclusive now. The one that Dan DiDio creates is called Usuru, who is just a giant mosquito. That's it. He's just a big mosquito. And there's another monster in here that's a giant slug, and they do some body horror shit with that one. But, yeah, the Usuru, basically he's just a giant mosquito who sprays a contagion everywhere, and Godzilla has to stop him. It's not bad. it's just like it's definitely short. If it was any longer, it'd be boring. But thank God it's not. Then of Gods and Con Artists, written by Danny Lore, who's been getting around at Marvel. It's a cool con artist story, like the Yakuza in the midst of a Godzilla attack. It's a really neat story. Godzilla's it's more of a dark, introspective story. Then we get Matt Frank, who writes and draws a comic called In the Shadow of a God, and just look at that. I want that as a poster. I want that as a whole. I want this image as a whole ass poster. I want that as like a whole ass poster. At the very least, I want that on my wall. I want this on my wall. It's more about Godzilla, his first time in Japan, and it's all told from a young schoolgirl's perspective and encountering Godzilla in person. Then we have Godzilla in the Darkness, which is written by E.J. Sue, and it's more of just it's very like a kid who pretends he's being attacked by Godzilla but gets saved by Jet Jaguar. It's a cute story. Then we have the big one, which is Godzilla battling this slug kaiju who's made specifically for the story. Which, by the way, I'm rather curious to know where Toho stands on these comic created kaiju, because I don't know who owns them. Is it IDW or Toho, or is it both? Because there's another monster in the comic Godzilla War for Humanity where it's basically it's basically a new monster called Subora or something, like some bacteria monster. So I want to know, do they have to okay these things with Toho and give the rights to them, or do they get to keep the original monster rights? I don't know. Maybe someone could explain that better to me. But no, this comic is basically Godzilla battling a slug monster in the middle of a hurricane, and the people are trying to survive. But the slug monster has I forget the slug monster's the snail monster, excuse me, the snail monster's name, but Godzilla is battling it, and also has little spawn, and they straight up eat people in here. It's actually pretty cool. The snail monster reminds me a lot of a creature from one of the kaiju from Ultra Q, and I'm pretty sure that's where the inspiration came from. Then we have a story set in the Old West that doesn't really have Godzilla. It's more about a Old West town that's caught in the middle of a battle between Mothra and Baragon, which is a cool matchup. Godzilla does show up. I mean, it's his 70th anniversary, so of course he has to show up. Then we have Insimitation, which is written by Michael W. Conrad. Another dark, introspective comic of Godzilla and people's time here. It's a really neat one. I really like that one. It gave me a lot of vibe of Godzilla Half-Century War. So then we have finally our last story, Aftermath, which is written and drawn by, I have to look at the names. Natasha Alderici, which basically has a group of people, of survivors, dealing with the aftermath of Godzilla's attack, but also this insurance company who has screwed them out of their money. So now, because it would stand to reason that insurance companies would fuck people over, saying Godzilla isn't a force of nature. He's an animal. We don't cover animals, so we're just going to take all your money. So it's a pretty cool story about not lying down and taking abuse from these giant capitalist corporations. It was a nice sentiment to end on. All in all, if you are a Godzilla fan, go pick this comic up. I should also mention they will release this in hardcover, but that will be $30, and they'll probably have covers and inks and whatnot. But yeah, if you just want to save $20 and get a cool cover, just spend $10 and get all the stories rather than spend $30 for the same thing, just with extra stuff, but stuff you could get anyway online, if that makes any sense. But if you want to get the hardcover, that's fine. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just saying, if you want to spend less, here you go. all in all, this basically was it is an anthology story and not an overarching one. But I will say this was definitely worth my time. This was definitely worth your time if you're a Godzilla fan. So there you go, guys. Yeah. Other than that, you guys tell me in the comments below if you've read Godzilla, the 70th anniversary special. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of it. Comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.